It's really bizarre to think that January the 6th was only like a year ago today. It is really strange, but it was such again, a big event politically in America. Um, People will be talking about it for years and years to come. And almost certainly it will be affecting the political discourse in America, at least not for this decade, if not the next two to come. Um, and essentially, you've got very worrying signs in America, but we've also got somewhat parallels, obviously, to what is going on in America at the moment here in the UK. Um, but there was also a very interesting question asked at the time: could ever like a January the 6th type attack happen here in the UK? And without a shadow of a doubt, the question is yes, yes, and something like this could very well easily happen in the UK. I don't think we are there quite yet, but there are forces that are slowly gaining power, very worryingly, in the background that this could lead to. We've just had very recently an anti-vax protest happen where they decided to attack a vaccine center, and they stole and destroyed equipment there at a place while shouting abuse and all sorts of stuff at the staff that were working there. So this could very well easily happen here in the UK. Never say never that this couldn't happen here. But it is very important that we do cover and look at these events so that we know what was happening, and that if something ever does like this happen again, then we can know who to hold responsible and learn to hold these people account. Because one of the big things that the Republicans are especially doing, as we'll find out here, um, they said one thing during January the 6th and are now completely denying they ever said such things afterwards. Um, it's like one side of America just doesn't live in reality, and that will indeed cause problems. So before we do get into this, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all those people who do support the channel that way. So let's dive into this then. So this comes from The Guardian, the title of "The Republicans Are Laying a Path Back to Power and Paving It with Lies." When the insurrectionists of January the 6th rampaged through the Capitol, Congressman Andrew Clyde of Georgia helped barricade a door. He fled with the rest of Congress when they did. A photograph shows him looking panicky, mouth wide open, arms gesticulating wildly behind what appears to be a security team member with a gun drawn, defending him. But a few months later, he declared this: watching the TV footage of those who entering the Capitol and walking through the Statuary Hall showed people in an ordinary fashion, staying between the sanctions and ropes, taking videos, pictures. If you didn't know the TV footage was from January the 6th, you wouldn't actually think that this was just a normal tourist visit. Clyde's account of January the 6th might be a little more precocious than those of his fellow Republican legislators, but they all joined him in pretending nothing much had happened and objecting even to the investigation of the day's events. After all, they were partly responsible. Most of them, when it was electing Republicans who stood and spread the lies of that Donald Trump had won the election, the lies that fed the insurrection, and they had lied some more than their own words and actions before, during, and after. And of course, in the immediate aftermath, the then Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell, was angry and shaken, declaring the mob was fed with lies. They were provoked by the president. Then he too began the project of walking it all back. What ensued is a cover-up in plain sight. When Trump took office in 2016, Republicans faced a crisis. Their party had won, but only by ushering it into a minority victory, one of history's most extravagantly dishonest men. They had to stand with him or against him, and most chose to stand with him. Others chose to fade away by resigning or just going home when their terms were up. Almost none of them stood up against him. The famously vindictive Trump punished any signs of disloyalty, so they were loyal. And to be loyal meant joining him in the corruption and lies. If we nominate Trump, we will get destroyed, and we will deserve it, Lindsey Graham tweeted back in the spring of 2016 before becoming one of Trump's most groveling sycophants. In a way, the sycophants got stronger. If truth restrains us and links us together, then they unchained themselves. We make contracts with each other with words. We share information. We make arguments. We own commitments. We hold each other account and show who we are. Lies are broken contracts in which words misrepresent what the speaker knows and they aim to delude, exploit, and divide. The liar may get stronger, but the social fabric gets weaker. And the strength is precarious. So lies have to be piled atop lies to keep accountability at a distance. And of course, politicians of all stripes are notoriously shifty. And the Republican Party may have a great reputation for honesty previously, but many of their campaigns long before Trump could be politely be called misleading. But after 2016, they clustered around the gaslighter in chief like bugs around a streetlight. And I often think of what Trump did as a disabilitation. They pallid, bashful untruths of yore before replacing them with bald-faced outrages. They lost any compulsion about openly contradicting themselves, and they did so often, and never more with the insurrection of January the 6th. As the mob was smashing its way into the building, Congressman Jim Jordan had been on the House floor accusing electoral officials in 6 states of corruption. A week later, he tweeted, "I have never said that the election was stolen." But as CNN noted, Jordan claimed in October that the Democrats were working to steal the election and spoke at a Stop the Steal rally in Pennsylvania 2 days after the election. In December, he said he didn't even know how he could be convinced that Trump didn't actually win the election. During the hours when the mob rampaged through the US Capitol building, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy called up Trump, reportedly furious. The president bears responsibility for the attack, he said shortly thereafter. Then he devoted himself to winning back Trump's favor and playing down what happened. Pressed on whether he regretted working to overturn President Biden's 2020 victory, Mr. McCarthy took the position that he did no such thing, the New York Times reported in April. He then worked to sabotage the investigation into what happened by trying to put 2 congressmen most loyal to the big lie, Jim Banks and the ever-disruptive champion shouter Jim Jordan, on the committee. The House Majority Leader Nancy Pelosi blocked their appointments. Banks was later caught sending out letters seeking information from government agencies, claiming that he was, quote, ranking the Republicans on the January the 6th committee, of which he was never in fact a member. By September, McCarthy was in full cover-up mode. The Guardian's Hugo Loyal noted that McCarthy threatened to retaliate against any telecommunications company that complied with the record requests of the Congressional Committee investigating the January the 6th insurrection. That's not technically lying, but it's certainly an attempt to try and prevent the truth from being known. There's a lot to cover up, especially if you don't want the committee to find out to the extent to which Congress itself was involved in the attacks on Congress. The politicians who fled in fear thereafter threw themselves in trying to deny the threat of protecting its chief instigator, and no one did not more so slavishly than the then Vice President Mike Pence, who was pressured before the January the 6th to try and violate the law to exercise a power that he did not possess to change the election outcome. If Vice President Mike Pence comes through for us, we will win the presidency, Trump had tweeted earlier that day. And then Mike Pence didn't have the courage to do what it should have been done to protect our country and constitution. At Trump's insurrection, the mob went chanting, "Hang Mike Pence." Pence then trivialized the event when he told the Christian Broadcasting Network, "I am not going to allow the Democrats to use one tragic day in January to distract attention from their failed agenda and failed policies of the Biden administration." The Capitol Police officer Anquilo Galnella, who then was seriously injured during defending it, the politicians told NPR, "On that day in January, I almost cost me my life. And we did everything possible to protect Pence from being hanged and killed in front of his daughter and wife. And now he's telling us that on that one day in January doesn't mean anything. It's pathetic. It's a disgrace." Although one of the first lies to explode out of the insurrection was that somehow the attack on the Capitol was the work of Antifa. The very idea that Antifa, as they used it, was an older lie. a transformed scattering of individuals and impromptu groups of anti-fascists into a cohesive, sinister gang that could be blamed for pretty much anything and anywhere. The New York Times described how January the 6th, the right wing was claiming that the insurrectionists had been led by Antifa, not Trump supporters. By the end of the day, Fox News was promoting it, claiming it was all over Twitter. And Representative Matt Gaetz of Florida stood on the ransacked House floor, claiming that many rioters were members of the violent terrorist group Antifa. They claimed, and the Times added, was hardened into the gospel among the hardline Trump supporters by voters and sanctified by the elected officials in the party. That is, they took the position that the riot, which at the time Republican legislators begged the president to stop, was instead a riot by essentially an imaginary left-wing organization with no conceivable motive to prevent the confirmation of Biden's victory. Now the legislation is closing in on the role that many in Congress played on the attack on Congress. Having fled their own mobs, they are now trying to flee the truth, relying on the fact that the significant portion of the country prefers the lies. The Republicans who helped this failed coup, and among them dismissed its impact, are preparing to do it better next time. The Democratic Senator Brian Schultz tweeted on Thursday, they are organizing the next one, not as a secret conspiracy, but as a central organizing principle for the next election. The Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said Donald Trump has infected, that is the appropriate word, the Republican Party, with his big lie and with his desire to stop democracy. We have no choice but to move forward, by which he meant overturn the filibuster to pass voting rights legislation. January the 6th was one confrontation, but there is another one coming. The lies that may implode at some point, but the liars have to be defeated. And I completely agree there. And it's very worrying that a lot of people, again, out there in America are saying and being very worried this could happen again, but on a more organized and planned scale. And if they manage to do this unorganized, what could they potentially do in an organized fashion? It's very, very worrying. And even more worrying, today, there is a rally being done by Trump on this that's saying that he still won, that, he was cheated out of his victories, his presidency. Again, massively worrying. And of course, this is something, again, we're going to have to keep a slow eye on over here, because, again, this could happen here in the UK, very likely. We have to be very, very careful. I keep an eye on, especially the Brexiteers, because they're the ones who are now saying that, Boris Johnson isn't fulfilling Brexit and that he needs to properly fulfill Brexit. And there are people out there who agree with some of these lunatics of what they want to do, but that's not what people voted for back in 2016. Again, you talk to leavers, that's not what they really wanted back in 2016. This Singapore and the Thames, which they are now all salivating over, something which at the time was kept very, very much at arm's length. Indeed, only there was a guy called, there was only one economist, and he wasn't even a technical economist, he just said he was. Patrick Minford, that's his name. And he was paraphrasing, this is what Brexit is going to be. We're going to become Singapore on the Thames. And he was kept at arm's length. He wasn't allowed to any official or even unofficial leave campaigns. But that's what he was promoting. That's what he was promoting. And of course, that's what Brexit has indeed become. It has been a revolution where the revolutionaries got what they wanted continuously, and it's never enough. And eventually they're going to start eating their own, because it's not what the public wanted. But there you go. So yeah, definitely something very worrying for America, and something that we need to keep an eye on over here as well. So as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.